Alright, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Yes, my right hand was back in action, but the weekend of the jam was my anniversary weekend with my wife, so I would have almost no time to commit to this game. The theme was magic, and the restriction was only one screen, so I came up with an idea for an arcane library with magical constructs defending it against a group of goblins determined to wreck everything. The result was a pretty bog-standard turret defense game. I would have a path that the enemy goblins would have to walk through to get to the end, which I accomplished using Unity's amazing nav mesh system. Turrets that would fire at any enemy that came within range, and an endpoint that enemies marched towards that would need to represent the magical core of our library. I scratched together the basics of all this in a mere hour's worth of work, which is very fortunate because that's all the time that I actually had to work on this for Friday night. Saturday, I started thinking about what the layout of my library was going to be, and I decided that instead of my initial impulse of having rows of shelves that the goblins had to walk through, I would have floors of a building that they had to climb. I made 3 kinds of goblins. A basic goblin that marched at a set speed and would be just dangerous in numbers. A tank goblin that reduced all incoming damage by 4, but who moved slower. And a sprinter goblin that moved at twice the speed of the other goblins, but who had a slightly lower health pool. I also decided that they would walk past bookshelves on which you could place magical books that would fire out spells at passersby. I came up with 4 elemental books. Fire, that would do all around good damage. Earth, that would do more damage than the fireball, but fire very slowly and be my tank crusher. Ice, that would do very little damage, but slow any enemy that it comes into contact with. And lightning, that would also do a small amount of damage, but bounce to nearby targets and effectively be my AoE. I added in concept of monocost, upgrades, and core health, and implemented all the necessary trimmings to make the game functional from start to end. I was quite pleased with my ability to stick to the schedule that I had stumbled on in my last game, and by the end of Saturday, I was left with a functional but ugly game, and all I had to do on Sunday were visual effects. It's 8:30 on Sunday and I haven't done any visual effects! Go, 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 go! Because of my lack of time on Sunday, the game ended up being underwhelming visually. All of my goblins were the same model with slight differences in size and coloration. My library had 0 clutter or interesting environmental effects, and everything was too damn dark and just sort of had this flat look to it that made me question why even do this in 3D. But it was something, and given that I was only able to put in like 12 hours over the course of the weekend, it turned out to be a pretty competent turret defense that got me 5th in gameplay and pretty dog shit in pretty much every other case.